Greetings and welcome to Leagues Behind, the official vodcast of the Arena Gauntlet League, looking at rule sets past and hoping to draw lessons that we can bring forward into future designs for the Arena Gauntlet League. My name is Christopher C. York. I am a philosopher of sport and games. I'm the founder of the AGL. And on today's episode of Leagues Behind, I'm looking at the first Chaos League on the server with former LC member Ryan Donnellan. Welcome, Ryan.
Heyo, Chris. Hey, everyone. I am not looking at Chris York, philosopher of games, because of this podcast setup, but I'm speaking to everyone, I guess. But not seeing you is a little, I'll have to get used to it.
Yeah, I mean, this whole idea of face-to-face meetups, I think it was inspired by John Goku or Go Home of the competing podcast fame. He kind of brought it up and said we don't see enough of each other's faces, and unfortunately, even though Evan gave me the instructions on how to sort of split the video feed between the recording software and the Discord chats interface, I've been too lazy to do it. And so the finished product, like I said before, you're going to see, it's going to look like we're seeing face to face, but I have the unfair advantage of getting to look at Ryan's face as I'm talking. So know that Ryan's operating from behind a veil of ignorance. He cannot see my expressions.
Yep. I'm already taking him behind the curtain, Chris, in the league and in the video cast that we're doing. So
yeah,
I'm in stride.
You were behind the big curtain. You were behind the LC curtain where the sausage gets made. Maybe you can tell us what that was like. So I think that at the point of the Chaos League, I don't know if you were there quite yet, right?
No, so Chaos League, I was not there yet. Nope. But, I assume it was, there isn't a huge holdover from Chaos now on the server. What do you think the turnover is from
Ultimately, I think
Chaos back in March 2021? Like, what percentage of the server do you think is still hanging from then?
I don't know what percentage of servers, but by clicking on the role tags in the server, I can see how many players are left over, and I think it was high 40s, low 50s.
Oh, nice.
So Chaos League has 76 players in it, and of those, somewhere in the high 40s, I think, is what we have left on the server. But of those,
Nice.
there are certainly a good number of them.
That's about 50%, by the way.
Well, yeah, there's a good number that haven't played in many tournaments since. And, some are, like stalwarts like Damien played in this one, but he's not currently, he's on a hiatus from the game, so he's not around. But you are one of the people who came, I think, in one of our first Reddit pushes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's right. Zendikar was my start. That was in late 2020. So Chaos was just like 3 leagues after that, starting in March 2021. So if you remember what was going on in the world around that time, a lot of people being pushed to virtual magic experiences around then.
Yeah.
So it was kind of the perfect time to have this thing thrive, really.
Yeah. Are you so? I guess that sort of raises the question. What do you think of the league these days compared to sort of COVID era leagues? How have we changed, evolved, gotten worse, gotten better, in your opinion?
Boy, it's tough to count all the ways. I did do a little pre-research coming into this, though, knowing we were going to talk about Chaos, to remind myself, what was it like back then? Because we take some of the tools that we had for granted. So if you don't mind, maybe I'll kind of quiz you actually about.
Oh my!
Do you remember
a
couple things?
I will fail this test, but I will try.
All right. Do you think we were using? How did we generate the pools back in Chaos? Do you remember if Booster Tutor was around?
We did have Booster Tutor back then. I have the rules in front of me, so I got a cheat sheet. So at this point we do have Booster Tutor.
Yep.
So Francesco's invented that. So that's a good quality of life improvement that we were benefiting from. I don't know if this is the first league. I don't think it's the first league where we had it, but it's like one of the early ones. And that was a huge difference.
Right. But we
quality
did.
of life.
I imagine as an admin rolling all the pools, it's also is a huge difference. Yeah. But I will say we did not have SealDeck.tech integration at that time. So
Right.
it was still copy the text and paste it. If you had another tool, I think I was just pasting it into Arena. And then when we get new packs, right, just putting the pack on the screen and going to Arena and adding every card from the pack
Yep.
into the pool.
Yep. Laborious.
A disturbing lack of probably pool transparency, right? Like now at least you kind of have links to like everyone's pools. It's really cool. Back then it was a lot of like, you know, a lot of trust. You know, it's just, hey, we're just a group, you know, trying. We all have integrity. We're just here to have fun, you know. A lot of trust needed there to
Yeah.
not slip an extra card in or something.
I would say that there still is, even with the transparency that we have now with SealedDeck.tech, we still are a fairly trusting community, and I think the instances of blatant cheating are extremely rare. Given the number of tournaments we've run, the numbers of players that have been through the server of various stripes, it's kind of astounding the overall lack of issue we've had. I'm not trying to invite disaster by tempting fate here, but I'm grateful that the issues we've come up against, I should say, fairly minimal, fairly rare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other you got other questions you want to
keep that culture going? Just because, well, since you have the rules pulled up, you're probably going to figure out a few of them. But some people might not remember or know that it didn't used to be called Arena Gauntlet League. I know on John's podcast, he famously never got the name of the league right. It took him a lot of iterations, right, before
Yeah.
he got it down.
Yeah.
But so I'm not going to quiz you on what it was called at the time, but I'll just reveal it, I guess. It was the Arena World Series Sealed League,
That's right.
or AWSSL, as no one called it.
Well, I mean, I think that's an aspirational title, right? So it comes from us moving
Yeah.
online and realizing that we're no longer geographically tied to any one place, and realizing that, reaching out through Reddit and other social media platforms, that we could be truly global. We are truly global now, even though there's a huge preponderance of players from North America. There probably still is, I would say, at least like 1 in 10 representation from other countries, roughly. Check my numbers, probably a little bit off, but it feels like maybe 1 in 10, 1 in 12 or 13 at lowest. So happy to see that the World Series part is a self-fulfilling prophecy. We don't need to call it that necessarily for it to do what it's doing, though. So yeah, that's a funny little callback.
And then the last little callback of something we didn't have at the time that came out just after Chaos, probably during Chaos actually. Caleb released the stats tracking sheet, or continual stats tracking of your overall lifetime, win-loss record through all leagues. Previously, right, we're just giving the Discord badges, so you know who won. But, you don't necessarily, unless you kept track of it yourself, know how you did every league. And now it's still maintained to this day by Jack, I think, right now.
That's right.
So that came out right around Chaos.
Yeah, that's a big kudos to Caleb for, giving us a big upgrade to our institutional memory, right? Just collectively, what a huge gift that was, right? To sort of like give us the memories of our past efforts and to sort of highlight rivalries. I know that Koffler, for example, loves to rub it in my face how many times I've lost against him. and many others, many others who I lose against regularly, like to cite stats to me. So people do get enjoyment out of it. It does make play in our series of tournaments more meaningful, I think. So really glad that Jack's taken up the mantle and is keeping the stats current. So yeah, I definitely think that it's good to acknowledge Caleb's role in all this. I think that he was maybe in the LC at the time. I'm going to get to talk to him before too long, so we'll dig into that bit of history. But before we do that, are there any stories from your service on the LC that you'd like to share? Any behind the curtain moments you'd like to reveal, or?
I'm gonna hold my breath to come on again someday, Chris. You got a lot of leagues to go through, and some of the ones where I did make my mark, or maybe did real good that league or something. I'm holding out hope. Maybe we'll chat again. But this one, since I wasn't on the LC, and that's the frame of mind I'm in, I had a twinkle in my eye, and I was like, "What is this cool place that I found?" So LC was not on my mind. Now, I think LC got on my mind when you guys introduced the sealed deck integration that Michael did, right?
Maybe.
Wait, who did it? Who did the? Oh my gosh!
Is that a Francesco thing? Is that something he did on his end? I think that's something Francesco did on his end, isn't it?
No.
No.
No. Oh, darn. Well, I wasn't. I have to look back on the history. Yeah. So sorry, I'm not crediting the right people. But anyway, I was reaching out because I was interested in like how all this was working, basically, and I think you took note of that, note of this guy that was also pretty active on the server and was interested in the tech aspect of it too, to pitch in. So it was soon after Chaos that I got involved.
Always happy to have more techies on the LC. I mean,
but no, you have to hold your breath on the stories, Chris.
Yeah, I mean everybody's got opinions. Not many people have skills. So when we see people who are technically minded, who are already making good contributions to the league culture, it's hard not to want to invite them to see what they can do as part of the committee, what kind of tournament designs they can enable. And I think we've seen, right, with a good combination of creative types and tech savvy types, we've seen the complexity of the tournament offerings go up considerably. And not in a bad way, right? Not in the terms of negative complexity, but just a tournament that offers unique and challenging choice trees, let's say, to our players. So I think everything's worked out pretty well in that regard. It's working fairly well. With regards to Chaos,
and when you automate the core aspects of the league more and more too, and make that part easier, you have room to look into these other aspects too that make things interesting. Back in Chaos, copying the pack and making sure your pool was right was enough of an accomplishment.
Yeah, exactly. So if we cut out the bookkeeping stuff, you're absolutely right. We have more room to add creative elements. So you're absolutely on point. But we should talk a little bit about Chaos League now. This was a sort of, classic, standard formulation of a Chaos League. You started out with 6 random packs from historic sets. And every time you lost, you got a randomly generated, randomly selected booster pack of a historic legal set, which was any pack on Arita up to that point. Is there anything that you remember from this tournament? Any sort of moments that you recall where the gameplay or the tournament structure was particularly engaging or impressive, or were there problems that you saw?
Well, I guess I'll say, to me, going into this, I still didn't have as much of a history of the league. This is, to me right now, this is Chaos 1. But I was kind of under the impression you had run this a few times before or something. So actually, I want to ask you, you mentioned having some test cases before or had you run Chaos? Like, was this kind of a normal thing for you? Had you run it like in person before or something, or you mentioned doing a test case of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that at least one of
What
our
did you done?
at least one of our physical leagues in Montreal at Face to Face was a Chaos League, mostly from packs that the store didn't want anymore. Right? But there was also the first Discord server league to see if the concept worked. We ran a zero stakes tournament with I think around 20 players, just to see if the thing would get off the ground. And we did everything we needed to do to make sure that tournament integrity could be maintained over the server with Arena as our platform. And so that was before we started keeping track of stats. I don't recall who won that one. I think probably Amir will say that he won it. And he might be right. But I don't recall off the top of my head who took that one down. But yeah, our first one officially was
Me,
Ikoria.
it was totally, to me, it was just totally new. I mean, like, in person or online, because Arena didn't have anything like this either. It was just super cool to combine sets together. It sounds so weird now to say because I've been playing the league for 4 years. We combine sets all the time. That's like what we do. But like, it was very cool to just be able to operate with just like a whole mix of cards together and make a sealed pool. I wasn't even doing cube, like at the time. I don't even know if it was on Arena yet. So, just it was really cool to me just to combine it all. And I had one other thought on that too. Oh, it's sort of known that there is a lot of power disparity between certain sets. And I think back then that was less, I don't know, less common knowledge maybe, or less pervasive. Maybe the difference was a little less. You had core sets, right? And then you had regular sets. So like that's maybe where your power difference was. But the time part of it wasn't coming into play. Arena had only been on, I only had sets going back so far that everything seemed kind of standard power level. And I think, playing Chaos made me start to see like, oh wow, there's some differences in set power levels here. Which eventually solidified, down the road as we got into future leagues.
Yeah, my sense of disparity of power between sets is kind of duller than other people's. Other people have a very keen sense of like injustice when they see one pack compared to another pack. But I try to see the treasure in the trash, so to speak. So for me, give me a pack of M19 any day, and I'll make it work. Those are the meat and potatoes of Limited, right? So I'm always happy to see a core set roll my way. There's always something you can use. Back then, I think the most egregious power outlier probably would have been Ikoria. I won this league, I think with a Lutri companion sort of at the helm all the way through. I remember copying a lot of spells in this league, and that was a lot of fun. A whole lot of fun.
Yeah. What the heck? Ikoria, I'm looking at mine. Mine was M19, Ravnica, Guilds of Ravnica, Rix, that's one of the Ixalan sets. I don't remember what it's called.
Rivals of
Ixalan, Eld, which was Rivals, right? Rivals. And then Zendikar. It's like, oh my gosh.
But you see, like, mashing together the sets for me has always been like one of the core league experiences, and that's why, for instance, these mono sets like recently Khans of Tarkir, MH3, where certain voices in the committee have been very loudly proclaiming these have to be mono set leagues. A little part of me dies every time I have to play in one of these. Because it really is fundamentally against the league intention and experience, right? It's dull. Just go play draft at your store. Just go play sealed at your store. If you want that experience of having like a mono set experience, I don't know. Call me old-fashioned, but that's not what AGL was ever about from my perspective. It's always about. I mean, chaos is
Oh
like
boy,
what.
I'm getting flashbacks.
Yeah,
Going back to the LC. I'm in the back room again.
Well, I mean, think about it. Like, so chaos is the extreme formulation of that ideology, right? It's everything is nutty all the time. There are cards that are thrown in your pool from every conceivable set. You got to deal with it on the fly, and there's a lot of creativity. There's also a lot of like, there's lots of feel goods, lots of feel bads, high, low lows, this kind of thing. I think that appeals to a certain kind of personality. Maybe I'm that kind of personality where I kind of like having to deal with things that are flung at me, at least in terms of Magic gameplay, right? And so, I think that if you just like want to make more or less a standard constructed experience out of League, I don't think you're doing it right. That's all. That's my thought on
All
it.
right, I gotta give a quick counterpoint.
Sure.
So this, just to remind everyone, this Chaos League was just any pack on Arena you could possibly get.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't like the last 6 or whatever, because Rivals of Ixalan was the first, like one of the first sets on Arena. So, but imagine doing that now. Like, if our most recent Chaos League was just 6 packs of anything on Arena, and someone got M19, Ravnica, Rivals of Ixalan, Zendikar, like, oh man. So it's a big challenge for the league committee now, unfortunately, to come up with kind of unique ways to have the chaos still, but have it be a little balanced.
Yeah,
Trying to do the best of both worlds, which is what Order and Chaos was trying to do.
Yeah, I think that we've come up with different ways to do this. Like I think Plane Chase maybe is the most unproblematic example of us making what is in essence a chaos league, but everybody goes through the same sets together, so the chaos is controlled a little bit. As you say, ordering chaos, or what we call Chaos 3, or Team Trios Chaos, or however you refer to that tournament. Yeah, it's another fix. I'm not sure I like the idea of just using stats to hash out which cards we can play with and which cards we can't. I think we should let people play with their, egregiously powerful toys. If you open them, you can use them. That's sealed. To sort of like take out all the fun cards and then say, now you can have a tournament with these ones that are left over. I don't know. Again, that tournament, I mean, I sign off on all sorts of tournaments that are not for me, right? Because I do think they appeal to a certain, percentage of the constituency. But I also have a very strong, sense that there's a good number of people who also, like me, don't enjoy these tournaments that are all about minimizing risk, about making everything safe and fluffy and happy for everybody. Like, I am, I'm the kind of guy, I kind of want to see, right? I want to see how things get. Like Mom versus Woe, that whole thing, right? When one alien set took over the base set of another, I found that really interesting. And I found the discussion around it really interesting. And I think that that was an experiment that was absolutely worth it. Even though it left a bad taste in some players' mouths, boy, did we have a lot of points of engagement on that topic. And anybody who played that tournament remembers the sort of planar overlay that occurred and the sort of discussions around that. I don't know. Some people just want to see the world burn, Ryan. What can I say? But I guess, I don't know. Like,
none of your viewpoints are surprising me, Chris. It's this, like I said, this is all stuff we've hashed out in the back room with understanding generally where people's league, where people get their kicks from the different leagues, and yeah, this is all stuff that is jiving with me from where you stand on things. So.
Yeah. I mean, we all, and that's the thing. Like, that's kind of. I mean, I play the leagues that aren't made for me, even though in the hopes that I'll come to understand what people enjoy about them. But the more I play these leagues with one set of them, the more I say, you know what, I might just sit the next one out, frankly. What do you think of like leagues like Kanza Tarkir and MH3 where we're just using one set all the time? What's your personal take on it?
But in the same, like chaos leagues are my favorite leagues, yeah. But it's just hard to do with some sets like MH3, you know. So I'm not sure what the best way to spice it up is. You know, we've pulled some levers here or there, you know, adding a few bonus cards, you know, just to like keep things interesting. So yeah, I hear you, and I don't have a silver bullet answer to that, except that I don't think the old way is the way to go either.
Right.
So,
So-
which is just meaning, you know, you can take any pack when you lose.
Yeah, I mean, so let's talk now. Like, there's not much to explain or elaborate on. Chaos is chaos. You know, everybody gets the rules, I think, as they're laid out. Do you think, like, so if we had to tackle this league today, right? You say that the old ways are not necessarily the best ways. How would you run a contemporary chaos league? How would you make it safe to play for people who would worry about the power disparity of outlier sets?
Oh, I did like I mean, we're kind of rehash ordering chaos here because that was something that I loved the idea of and pushed for. So that was kind of my ideal space to go into. I guess I'll say, and this has come out before, you know, cutting room floor stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I was pushing for in that league was having it be a little more cube-like, where rarity didn't matter. And it was more like the win rate of a card was the rarity. So, you know, your packs were curated to have high win rate cards and low win rate cards in them. But you could get a 55% win rate rare, you know, and a 62% win rate, you know, uncommon as your big card in that pack. So taking rarity out of the equation, I think, is a really interesting space to play in. Especially so for someone like me, I you know, been playing since Arena came out and have plenty of sets and wild cards, so that part doesn't matter to me. It might be an issue for newer players though, so I understand that. But you asked me my ideal, so
Yeah. No, it's good.
that's the next space that I would like to do for a Chaos League.
Well, let me ask you some questions about that then. Right, so if you think that ordering chaos is kind of like the fixed chaos of the future, I mean, obviously, WotC builds their cards or designs their cards with a certain rarity in mind, there's a certain amount of artificiality that goes into sort of overriding rarity with, you know, post hoc stats-oriented approximations of power. Should the LC be doing WotC's work for them? Should we be redesigning the game, or should we just be trying to run, you know, like, should we sort of second guess their set design or their card design, or should we just run tournaments using these as game pieces with the rarity they intended, in the composition of sets that they intended?
That's a leading question, Chris. Should we do it, or but I mean, I guess I'll still say yes. I guess my counter argument would be that, I mean, they're designing a set in an insular bubble. They're not designing Chaos Leagues. So WotC doesn't design Chaos Leagues. If they did, I think they would probably come out with a cube. Isn't that what Festival in a Box was?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess they did come up with a cube in a way. But what about like cards that are on Arena, right? Like they are released through like historic anthologies or pioneer anthologies or whatever, right? They end up there because of some, I don't know, some supplementary product that's not part of the set. I'm guessing those cards don't have a limited win rate attached to them in the standards of their times, and so they're not going to sort of factor into chaos. Like, in a way, like, if we're going to run a real Chaos League that uses all the cards on Arena, those seem like pieces that we should want to incorporate, but under your stats-based approach to making a Chaos set or making a Chaos League, those kind of get left on the cutting room floor, and that seems like a missed trick to me.
Well, they don't have to be. That's simple as that.
Okay.
You have every pack have a wild card then,
Ah,
and throw them in that slot.
okay, all right. So some spice might
Like,
find its
like
way.
it doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah. Like, and the goal isn't to have every pack be the same power level, because the power level derived from win rate comes from the win rate within that set's limited play.
Right.
So something could have a really high win rate, like Writhing Chrysalis or whatever. That doesn't mean it's going to be great in a Chaos League. It'd still be good, but you know.
isn't that a problem with the design?
'Cause it
though?
does.
Like you've just admitted that the ratings don't have anything to do with how they're going to do in a chaotic format. It's only set based. So if the stats are key to the
Not
set,
anything to do. You don't. Hello, that's taking it to the extreme. I'm just saying that there is going to be some chaos, natural chaos involved, just like there is with normal chaos. If you get a synergistic in-set rare that was great in that set in normal chaos, the same rules apply. That rare might not be good in a chaos pool combined with other sets. So I'm just saying that same variance between sets is going to exist in this Chaos League too. So when we design packs, some people get to play with their fancy toys, and some people are going to get a bunch of high win rate rares, or high win rate cards, rather, that actually turns out it was kind of a bad pool. So you will still get the normal chaos variance that I think you're seeking as well. It won't be as perfect.
but the whole idea, like, so, okay, so I guess what kind of like what doesn't jive with me is like we're mitigating chaos, right? So if the idea is that we want something that is a truly random experience, and we're sort of putting guardrails on from the very get-go, and we're putting guardrails on in a way that is sort of against the intention of the game designers, and we're using stats which may or may not apply to their win rate in a chaotic format as opposed to the set format. It seems like there's something wrong with the parameters of that experiment. It seems it doesn't really accomplish what you want a Chaos League to accomplish, or if you do accomplish it, you've just made your own weird constructed format, right? In a way, where you've sort of like you've jury rigged the experiment to have a sort of safer result, a less volatile result. I don't know. I guess that the spirit of exploration.
I've never talked to someone who's so pro chaos yet so anti chaos in the same sentence. Because you're talking about going against designers' wishes, yet we're creating an experience that the designers didn't intend anyway, just by mixing a bunch of cards together. If we mix cards together, what if we just take the win rate thing out of it? Maybe that's where you're getting hung up on. What if we just mix all the cards together,
Right.
and just make packs out of cards cross set? So do you like that idea, or do you think that when you get a pack, it should have other cards in that set in it?
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. I guess I don't have any issues with that kind of like true chaos. Like we're taking every card in Arena, we're making our own packs with it, and because these packs don't exist, we have to create a product that WotC didn't. I can kind of see that flying, right? I can see that flying, and I don't want us to be hamstrung to only stuff that WotC signs off on. But that's not necessarily my line. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this, right? I wouldn't have pioneered a format that kind of flies in the face of what WotC intends to do with cards. But I do think like maybe I'm conflicted on this point. Maybe that's why I'm being inconsistent. Because part of me wants to say, well, they have put this research in, they have put the effort in, they have put like rarity symbols on the cards because of their approximation of their power, or something of that ilk. But at the
You
same,
also get these weird commander rares sometimes, you know, they have to seed for constructed versus limited play. You get these packs that are rares that are totally unplayable and was just a constructed plant. So like it's not perfect for limited either. Like a rare doesn't mean a good card. So like that's they're already, you know, not being perfect with designing a limited set with these normal set releases. So
yeah, yeah, I think that's fair, right? And I think that you're right. But I mean, we are a format that starts out as limited, and the longer the weeks go on, the more packs that we build on, the closer that we approximate a constructed format, right? So I do think there are some of those cards which look bad in isolation as, say, sealed cards, and the more that the weeks plod on, the more of the chance those cards can sort of be revalorized in a deck and play some sort of functional role that they didn't previously. I do think that part of the skill of being a good league player is sort of realizing when that tipping point occurs, which is tough, admittedly. So to get back to my point though about LC over WotC, right? The league committee, should we violate the spirit that WotC builds the cards with? I think there's reasons for yes and there's reasons for no. Like there's things that they know that we don't, and there's things that we know that they don't when they were designing the cards. And the stats, the win rates are one of those things, right? That you can kind of say, well, they had no idea. They had some idea, but they had an imperfect idea of how these cards would perform. And as a matter of fact, now we have all the data we need to sort of crunch those numbers and to find out what rarity they should have been at. I do think that's one approach. My worry, at least on that front, would be like, that's a lot more work, I think, for us, for the designers of the tournament, to sort of say, well, you know, even on a case-by-case basis, if you really want to have like a tight, curated chaos experience, I do think you got to go through card by card almost, right? And say, okay, well, yeah, this has an artificially high rating because it was so synergistic with everything else in its set. In a chaos environment, we're going to lack the cards that are going to pump up the win rate in this. So we got to downshift it to uncommon. Like, again, this leads into what I call the curation problem. Whenever we put ourselves in the seat of WotC, we create, one, a lot of work for ourselves, and two, a lot of justification potentially to our player base in saying like, okay, here's our reasoning, this is why we did what we did, and there's always reason for dispute on those bases. So I guess that playing with the packs that WotC give us, in a way it's safe. Maybe mixing up the way those packs combine together is where we can express ourselves best as a tournament series. My thoughts on this are all over the place. They're incomplete. They might be inconsistent, Ryan. I don't know if I've satisfied you in the end at all. I don't know if I've satisfied myself. I'm still kind of at odds. I can't explain it any better than I have.
oh, well, you gotta put up a poll after this great debate up on the servers.
What,
Hey,
debate with myself?
who do you side with?
Do you,
No,
do you
no,
side
who
with
do you
Chris
side
1 or
with? Do you
Chris
side
2?
with Ryan's argument or Chris's argument for a curated or all mixed up next sealed league or whatever you were trying to say?
Well, I think there's room for both, right? I think there's room for both on the server, and I think that both have their fans. The Order in Chaos tournament had its boosters and supporters. It had its critics as well. It was, I wouldn't say it was, it by no means was it our most divisive league. Right? We've had way more divisive leagues, but still there were voices on both sides of the argument. I think like what we're looking at now as a way to sort of like sneak in elements to the tournaments that make them less boring and introduce more chaos without completely, cutting off the guardrails and making things chaotic in a bad way is kind of the LCI pathing technology, right? You see that in Bloomberg, it kind of made a comeback. Would you like to speak to that? How that's a kind of like a middle road between order and chaos that doesn't require us to look at stats necessarily?
Oh yeah, no, I love that. I mean, that was, something, I was proud of to be part of the design of, and happy to, you know, continue that going forward. Boomburo design looks really sweet. Definitely my type of league. So yeah, I love that space too.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that kind of gives you enough of the base set that the purists get what they want, right? They get a majority of the base set cards, but there's enough spice in there that you can come up with cool combinations and funky outside, corner cases that make the gameplay just way more sophisticated. We talk about how a bonus sheet kind of brings a set to life. Here we're adding bonus packs, right, or bonus sets. So the combinatorials just go off the chart, even by adding one other set. I'll give you another example of maybe a fixed chaos, and it's one of my least popular designs, and it got rammed down my throat almost as soon as I put it out. It's the so-called Omen Path Player of the Year quarterfinals, where I just like slam two sets together through some mechanically thematic overlap. I think like two sets with flashback, two sets with cycling, two sets with this, two sets with that. And I thought this would go over like gangbusters. It's like peanut butter and chocolate, right? So here you have two sets. So you've got the possibility space is like expanded. It's like two monoset leagues in one. And it did not go over exactly as well as I expected, Ryan. Spoiler alert. Can you see maybe why that wasn't the case? Why that Omen Path idea was not a slam dunk?
Yeah, I guess because sets have some synergies, but they might only overlap in certain colors. So if you don't have those synergies that come together, it can feel a little random. I don't have a lot of examples. I don't have that in front of me. Besides, you said kicker,
Right.
was a commonality.
Yeah.
So I can't pick apart, the specific combinations. But the other thing is not really related to the design. It's more like what should Player of the Year be at the end? Like, what sets should we be playing with? Should we be playing with from the year and somehow combining those in some way? So this didn't feel like a combination of like, oh yeah, I played this set to get here. It was like, oh, okay, I'm using Ikoria. That wasn't one of the sets of the year. So I would say there was a little of that feeling about it too. Like, but that's like very specific to Player of the Year and not like the tournament, not the combining packs in general.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's debatable whether or not some high-level tournament should be the format of the qualifying tournament. For example, Wizards of the Coast would often have like the path to a sealed Pro Tour B modern, or the path to a modern Pro Tour B sealed, right? So they would often switch it up. So you had to sort of master both formats to get where you wanted to go. So I don't see any a priori reason why Player of the Year has to be strictly on rails for sets from that year per se. I think we just want to have formats that challenge players at a high level to adjust quickly to challenges they haven't had to face before. Maybe players don't like that. Maybe they like the comfortable, easy. I did this before. I'll do this again. I hope that's not the case.
Well,
But
let me make a different, like another metaphor. At the end of every league, we do a mega draft, right?
right,
That's pretty kind of random. Like, we don't drafting during the league. It's a sealed league and it ends in a mega draft. But you can always rely on the league ending in a mega draft. You don't know what packs it's going to be, the exact stuff, but it's going to be a mega draft, and we all agree that mega draft is cool. So I think like if Player of the Year was always it doesn't have to be the same sets, but if it was always like the same type of thing that everyone found fun, like I think it would be cool. I don't feel I feel more desire to try to make Player of the Year tournament consistent rather than experiment with a new space in that tournament window.
Well, if you've watched Leagues Ahead, our number two, for the Player of the Year 2024 tournament, you'll see that, the committee steered us towards very familiar grounds. We're using the same parts of the Buffalo that we used, earlier in the season, right? You'll see the same sets reappear again and again, right? With the exception of the quarterfinals, we're coloring within the lines, right, for the semifinals and the finals.
I have to say I'm gonna have no shame in saying that I did not see that because I'm enjoying my LC retirement and not having to watch all the content that always happens on the server is one of the perks now. So I would love to have known that, Chris, but I'm gonna unabashedly say I did not. I was not keeping up on what this year's Player of the Year was going to be. So
No, that's fine. Are you
gonna check it out
are you
sometime.
queued? Do you know if you're queued?
Am I in contention for getting on there?
Yeah.
I mean, I have no idea. I thought I was, but my last league was terrible. Modern Horizons 3 was the worst league I've ever had. I think I know our partnership league went pretty bad too for Neo Neo 2, but for an individual level, I could at least blame you a lot for that one.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
But this was just at an individual level. I couldn't win a game, and it was like crazy. So I think I only got 2 or 3 wins. I don't remember, and I played all my games and got knocked out. So it kind of, maybe it didn't actually kick me out of any sort of Player of the Year, cumulative qualifying, but it felt like it. It felt like, how could I go 2-11 or 3-11 in a league and still get into the Player of the Year without, or something. But yeah, I'll check it out sometime. But my inclination is maybe not.
You can still win Bloomborough. Sneak your way in.
Yeah, that's right.
So look, this is I guess maybe close to our final thought on the subject since we're running up our time here. Is there anything else you want to say about chaos, ordering chaos, monoset leagues? You said you had a terrible time in MH3. Do you think that your odds would have been improved if some random sets were thrown in there, like Kaladesh Remastered, for example, to take advantage of the energy synergies?
I don't think my success or failure in the league had nothing to do with it being mono set or not. And I still enjoyed the league being mono set. So it's really just a different question. It's more about, enjoyment or not. But yeah, I can see how I did. Look, like I've just kind of said, I can feel free to check out now when I need to. So when I was unceremoniously knocked out of Modern Horizons early, I have not paid attention to the meta of what the top decks are. So maybe it did get stale and regress to being like 2 top decks, at the end, and could have used for some more variety. But that wasn't my personal experience. I wasn't always losing to the same decks. I was losing to every deck that faced me.
Well, it sounds like you had a little bit of LC burnout, but you went out on a banger. I'll wait till LCI Lost Caverns of Ixalan League review to fully congratulate you. But that idea basically came fully formed out of your head, and it was a home run by most standards of the word. So you went out on a strong note, that's for sure.
Thanks, and I love the new design too of Bloomborough. Happy to see that continue.
It's different. It's different, but
Just
definitely
feel,
inspired by
I feel
LCI.
bad. Yeah. I feel bad we have to always think of a different, a slight variation every time. It's like it's a lot of work, right? But this seems like that's what's happening now. Ever since Mom was another one. It's not a straight path system, but that's one that I also had a big hand in with the final version of how to limit, how many packs you can get of the main set, basically. Just coming up with these unique ways to do that is tough each time. So I appreciate you guys doing it.
Well, I mean, I'd like to think that what we have now is a sort of repository of tournament designs, right? And I think that this podcast is perhaps a way of us looking back on those and seeing what's salvageable and what's not. And from what you're saying today, right? Chaos had its time in the sun, but it's not a tournament we could revive in the same way because of the proliferation of very powerful packs on Arena. At least without, as you say, putting on some sort of guardrails.
Yeah, I couldn't not. I have to ask then before we leave. Is there any plan in the works for another chaos down the road?
The closest thing that we have on the docket is the end of year Foundations League, which is basically planned to be Plane Chase 2, sorry. So it'll be, we'll start with 6 packs of Foundation, which is a glorified base set, essentially. And every week we go to a new plane, we'll add a new sort of flavor of punishment pack to the soup stock. And we're going to come up with a pretty spicy brew by the end of week 6, hopefully. So stay tuned for that. It's kind of, I guess, a similar way to sort of make chaos fair, right? Which is what we're all, I suppose, in our own way, trying to design towards, is different ways of making chaos fair. So by having everybody open the same kinds of punishment packs, that seems to be something that makes most people happy and makes them feel safe. And they're not going to be the sort of victim of the random caprices of fortune, right? As opposed to like a true Chaos League where, you open up really 6 strong busted sets, and your neighbor opens up 6 anemic sets, and one feels great and one feels really bad, right? That's not what we want. And I suppose that's to go back quickly to the Omen Path idea. It's kind of like the chaos without the unfairness. If you're opening the same sets, the idea is that you won't have a reason to think that your pool is going to be completely nuts compared to the people that you're playing against. If they're opening exactly the same sets in the same number as you, it should mitigate the potential for abuse considerably.
Yeah, and that's a great point to relate Plane Chase and Chaos to that. They're different, but they're similar vibes. So yeah, that's cool. I'll look forward to that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time today, Ryan. It's been fun chatting with you and catching up.
Yeah, awesome, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
We'll be seeing
Glad
you.
we can finally make it happen.
Yeah, we'll be seeing you in Bloomberg, I guess, eh?
Yeah, I think so.
For your last swing at Pody 2024 contention?
Yeah, right.
What animal are you choosing?
Is it coming up that quick? There's only one. There's only one more before. Are we already there?
We're already there. Yep, just Bloomborough.
Oh wow. Well then, geez. I guess I gotta. So no, I haven't. I have not picked an animal yet. So I have no. Sorry, can't offer a great guidance there.
All right. All right. Well, we'll see you later, Ryan. Thanks for your help in discussing the Chaos League tournament, and yeah, we'll see you on the server. We'll be fighting against you in Bloomborough. Be seeing you.
All right, awesome, Chris.
Bye.